We're going, babe.
We are going. How exciting. Welcome. We will give everybody a few minutes to join us, log in, get started before we get into the meat and potatoes. So we are excited to have you. Okay,
All
we'll give
righty.
everybody a couple more minutes. Just welcome, welcome, welcome. We are very prompt here at Blueprint to Blue Chip. So
Well, I don't think we should penalize those for being on time. So we'll give everybody here about another 30 seconds, and then we'll get started. Does that work for you, Aaron?
that works.
Great. We are definitely very respectful of your time. We know that it's a Wednesday evening. We're here in Denver in Mountain Time, so it's 5 o'clock. Some of you on the East Coast are at 7 p.m. So we know that you have other things to do and other things as far as getting back to family and so forth. So we appreciate you showing up. So we're going to get started here in about 10 seconds. Aaron, why don't you go ahead and take lead?
I would love to. So, welcome everybody. We are excited to have you. This is not for fluff. This isn't your typical webinar or live event. This is really a wake up call. We're here because the next generation is navigating a chaotic world with no roadmap. Athletes are being handed opportunities without being taught how to steward them. This is about calling coaches, families, and athletes back to character, integrity, and discipline. If we don't rebuild structure, we lose the future. So as you enter the room, drop a wave, a hello emoji, and comment where you're tuning in from. So go ahead, Thomas. Do you have anything to share to
Yeah, I
welcome
think it's
everybody?
when we originally started Blueprint to Blue Chip, it was basically just a mentorship program for student athletes in high school. Once we started working, we'll get more into that a little bit later, at least I will in my experience. And then once we started guiding student athletes from high school to college, we started to notice that the college athlete, as they started to navigate the new world of NIL, had a lot of question marks. And then once we started reaching out to professional athletes, we figured out that a lot of these athletes, their athletic career is over at 25, and that's still relatively young. We can go through all the stats as far as the average NFL player is 1 to 3 years, NBA player is 18 months, et cetera, et cetera. But we started to find a lot of professional athletes also needed the Blueprint to Blue Chip model because they were trying to reinvent themselves at the age of 25. They were no longer a professional athlete or Olympic athlete. They had to segue into the professional workforce.
Awesome. So that brings us to why we are here. Let's be real. We've got athletes getting NIL deals, followers, fame, and yet they're falling apart emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Parents have a lot of things competing against them and feel like like you're climbing an uphill battle. And coaches are trying to do it all. They have a lot of competing priorities and things that are standing in their way as well. And then we have the kids, they're overwhelmed or maybe underwhelmed, whichever bucket they fall in, and really under equipped. And this is the moment that we flip the script. Talent will get you noticed, but character will keep you there.
Yeah. The principles behind Blueprint to Blue Chip is character, integrity, and discipline with every step. When we say every step, that means into the locker room, into the weight room, into the classroom, into a neighbor's home, into church. We want to give the student athlete as well as the athlete the tools to operate with every decision that revolves around character, integrity, and discipline. That's the foundation of who you are. Right now, we see a lot of athletes that they're rewarded for potential and not for results. So that's kind of flipped the switch. When I was playing a two-sport athlete in college, was the late 80s, early 90s, there was no NIL. So you basically right now, you're playing for likes, you're playing for shares, and you're playing for comments. Back in the day, I'm sure a lot of you here a little bit probably played sports 80s and 90s, way before NIL, way before social media. The game has changed, not just on the field of court, but also in the realm of social media.
Very true. So let's take a minute and get grounded in who Thomas and I are. So before I was a coach, I was a mom in the bleachers watching my own kids succeed in sports, but struggle with the culture surrounding it. I'm definitely not a former pro athlete. I'm something even more dangerous, a mom who refuses to stay silent. I saw what was happening, character eroding, parents exhausted, and no structure to anchor our kids. I built Blueprint to Blue Chip alongside Thomas because nothing existed that addressed what families actually needed. Not hype or hustle, but identity, structure, and leadership development rooted in truth. And now I coach the 1%, not just to perform, but to lead. I don't coach for applause, I coach for alignment. Because when a family remembers who they are and how they lead, everything changes.
Awesome. And then there's me. Again, a two-sport athlete in college, track and football, sustained a neck injury that sidelined me indefinitely, and I was told I'd probably never walk again. Transitioned that competitive spirit into endurance sports like Ironmans, half Ironmans, obviously a Spartan race, full marathons and half marathons. But my real calling came when I started mentoring kids. I was out in Los Angeles, and I was working with predominantly and primarily with high school football players. And I would say, look, I know you want to go to UCLA or USC, and that's awesome. Let's shoot for the moon. Maybe we'll settle in on the stars, as they say. But let's try and find you a university or a school where you could play the sport you love and get a good education. Because the probability of you making it to the next level, meaning the pro sport, pro arena, or even the Olympics, is probably really slim. So we want to operate with clear expectations of how we work with each individual athlete. Then once we got them to college, and I'm sure a lot of you that are my age and in your 50s, when you committed to a program, you committed to that program. Now with the portal, we've got kids jumping all over the place. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that they understand all the options. And if you get that reputation of just jumping ship when things get hard, that's not a currency that you want to tag along or you want to have follow you.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. So, really, what's the problem? Let's stop pretending this is about sports. Sports is a preparation. Sports is a vehicle to develop these kids into credible, exceptional human beings. Whether you're 18, whether you're 23, 25, and beyond. And as you can see on the slide, 73% of athletes burn out before college. Only 7% go on to college. And those that do, so many of those are underprepared for the pressure. And that's where we're losing them. We're not just losing their potential, but they're losing their purpose of why they're here. Or they're so identified as who they are as an athlete, they know nothing beyond the realm of sports when that ends, which could end at any moment, as Thomas shared in his own personal story. So they don't need more reps of how to get faster or stronger. They also need how to build character, integrity, and discipline that will lead them through life.
Yep. Thanks, Aaron. Honestly, I really don't have too much to add to this because I've played with enough. We've all played with enough athletes that have a ton of talent, but they lack character. I keep coming back to this because although we have one goal when we're on the field, and that's to get a W, we have to work within each other on and off the field. So talent is a dime a dozen. What are you going to do with that when your talent runs out? And what I mean by that, at some point, you're going to have to hang up your cleats. You're going to have to put your helmet away. You're going to have to put the basketball back in the closet and so forth. But who are you after the sport? And that's what we really want to close in on.
So well said. So we focus and know that there's 3 different types of athletes out in the world. We have our blue chip, which we know is the exceptionally talented individual but may lack structure. We have our fringe players, which either have the physical abilities but lacks maybe some of the mental acuity, or have the mental acuity and lack some of the mental capacity. And then we have our worker bees that are the ones that just show up and may or may not want to go on to the next level, but they might be overlooked as well because they're the ones that are silently working. So all of them have different strengths. All of them have different struggles, but there's a through line. Every one of them needs more than just talent. They need structure, they need character support, they need integrity, and they need discipline to move on in life at whatever level they decide to compete at.
Exactly. So just to build on that, as far as the 3, could you go back to that other slide for me? Thank you. The blue chip, we know that we all have seen those athletes, whether you're going to see your son, your daughter, your nephew, you see somebody that's just a complete standout. We know they're going to go to the Notre Dames and the Ohio States. They might lack a little bit of character. They might be unpolished. That's okay. We could work with those people as well. The fringe players, the athletes that I've always been attracted to, they have the physical attributes, but they don't have the mental game, and vice versa. And that, I feel like, is just, it's an athletic Rubik's Cube to just get everything lined up. And once those, we all know, we've all seen those players. Maybe you were one of those players. Once all the colors align and once everything falls into place, you are unstoppable, because your next step is definitely a blue chip. The worker bee, it's just, we know that they're never going to put on the helmet. They're never going to shoot another ball in college unless it's in intramural sports. But what's really interesting here, and what I really want to dive into on this slide, is how the coach, the parent, and the athlete work together. We get a progress report from the coach, personal, professional, and athletic progress report. We share that with the parents without the athlete on the phone. We run interference for the coach. We all know the coach's biggest nightmare is when a parent comes and says, "Why isn't my son playing? He's the next Tom Brady." And is he really? Is he really? I know you think that as a parent, and I'm sure some of you are shaking your heads right now. We get that progress report. We share that with the parents, and we say, "Look, do you want to get your student athlete on the phone? Do you want to get your son on the phone or your daughter on the phone? And we'll talk about this." We're not saying that this is gospel. What we're saying, in order to play for this coach, this is what we need you to work on. Now, secondly, is that student athlete, do they want to play that sport, or is the parent living vicariously through them? If we're all in agreement it's the student athlete that wants to play the sport, then we need to be supportive, and we coach the parents on how to be supportive and not overbearing. And as far as the athlete goes, we had the top slide, is they're the bus driver. They're leading the show. If they get burnt out, if they're done, everything falls apart. The coach is going to move on. They're going to replace that player. We know that. Parents might be disappointed, but then they're just going to have to rebuild and go on a different path. So of these athletes, they're all very important to us. No one gets left behind. No one gets left out. And that's pretty much how we tie all 3 together: the coach, the parents, and the athlete.
What a perfect segue into just what you were just speaking about, the athlete, the coach, and the parent. So if one leg of the triangle is off, the system breaks down. And really, the athletes need to be in the lead. It's ultimately their responsibility to lead where they want to be going. And parents need to guide. And then the coaches, you're there to kind of pull it all together to bring what the child's vision wants with the support of the parent to kind of really bring that into fruition and to guide that athlete to the next performance. And when we work with you and we align all 3, that's where the transformation really begins, because we're not addressing just one piece of the puzzle. We're addressing the whole. And we know that in order to be successful, all parts have to be working together in order to move forward.
Right. Well, I mean, we pretty much know exactly where the coach stands. The coach will establish the culture of the team and the direction of the team. We know that. They'll give us the feedback. What we do is when we talk to the parent, there's a particular social structure that Aaron and I have discussed. It's really daunting for a parent. And I just kind of call it the 5 pillars. One, you as a parent, you and your spouse are raising that child. That's only 20%. Then you have the internet, and you have social media, bullying. We know that's a rite of passage. Now you got social media and bullying. OnlyFans there for some of the female athletes. Then we have teachers that have their own agenda, and we don't need to get into all the woke stuff, whether or not it's gender, what bathrooms to use, what flag to have in the classroom, and so forth. And then we also have porn. Porn is out of control. You know, some of the things that we've been looking into is some of the high school athletes. We don't need to get into it here, but the access to porn is really derailing a lot of these kids, both young men and women. And lastly, YouTube is an awesome tool if it's used correctly. But if they go down that rabbit hole, they could spend anywhere 15, 20 minutes, a couple hours. And lastly, video games. So when we're talking to the parents, sometimes parents think sports are a perfect outlet for their student athlete, for their child, and it is if it's constructed correctly. But otherwise, we tell the parent, if you're not raising your kid, somebody else is, and that could be YouTube, porn, or the internet.
Well said. So what if your 15-year-old is behind the wheel? You know, this is I love the analogy of a bus. You know, what if they're driving the bus going 60 miles an hour? What would that look like right now? And in today's day and age, they're getting presented with really big decisions without the development to back them. And oftentimes you as the parents don't even have all the information to properly guide them. So it's so important that we create structure, because in structure there's safety. And right now, oftentimes they're missing that. And it's so important that we slow this down for them to help them understand who they really are, so they can be the one that's in charge and driving the bus. But if they don't have the tools and they don't have the processes to equip themselves with making sound decisions, we're going to see a lot of what we're currently seeing right now. And ultimately, it's going to affect them in the long run. And our goal is to ensure that we're building talent for the long term, 50, 60 plus years, well after they step off the field or the court, so that they can make a lasting impact from their lives in society.
Exactly. And hopefully we didn't lose you on this slide where it says, what if your 15-year-old was behind the wheel? Again, we started Blueprint when we were mentoring high school athletes, but then it grew into college. So that could be the 15, the 20, or the 25-year-old that we were talking about earlier. You know, oftentimes the best quote I ever heard was, what's the definition of boredom? And that's consistency. What we do is we have a consistent program that's catered to the athlete at their age point and what their goals are that they're trying to achieve. It's not a one size fits all. So when we're working with student athletes, we're working on the structure of who they are and who they want to become. If we're working with a collegiate athlete, which we're doing right now, we're trying to navigate the uncharted waters of NIL and the transfer portal. If we're dealing with professional athletes, is how do they make that transition? Because we've all seen or heard that guy at the end of the bar that talks about how he threw the winning touchdown pass in the high school championship. And you're like, dude, that was 30 years ago. What else are you doing? Who else are you? So what we do is we give those professional athletes the tools to transition into the workforce. Because, listen, I'm just pulling numbers out of my ear, going from $600,000 a year to making $60,000 a year, and all of a sudden you have a wife, a kid, a mortgage, and some car payments. I don't think $60,000 a year is going to cover it. So we give them the tools to make that transition into the professional workforce.
Well said. And yes, we are not just dealing with the 15-year-olds. So what's it look like when there is no system? You know, and oftentimes we see that most people are shooting from the hip, whether they're 15, 23, 25, 35, you know, they just are lacking structure, and emotions are high. And when your emotions get high, efforts get low. And then everybody's on edge and nobody's ultimately speaking the same language. And oftentimes it's just creating chaos. And we don't want to build leaders from chaos. We want to build them from order, accountability, and vision. And so it's critical that you put into place structure and systems and processes and tools that allow you to lead your life versus constantly reacting to it. So if that's hit home, drop 100% in the chat for me.
Yeah, one of the things that to build on that, thanks, Erin, is with a system and structure comes accountability. Oftentimes when we're talking to people, they say, okay, this is a great pitch. This sounds awesome. And it sounds like I need it or my student athlete needs it and so forth. How long is it going to take? 10, 15 minutes per day tops. And with that, what I talked about comes accountability. What we do is we make sure we know exactly what the culture is of the coach. So we hold them accountable. We talk to the parents on exactly where they stand and what is their role in this. We hold them accountable. Student athlete, again, back to what we're talking about is the bus driver. We write down the goals with them and we go over those goals with them. So at any point in time, if those change, they need to tell us about that because we're holding them accountable. So the bottom line is with system and structure comes accountability.
Could not have said it better myself. So everything we teach comes from lived experience, and this is not theoretical. We built it because we needed it for me, my own family, and in my own lives. And we wanted to then give that to the world. We wanted to change families, athletic programs, and lives nationwide. And we're not here to sell a program. This isn't about selling a program. We're here to rebuild a generation.
Perfect. Moving on. Go ahead, Erin. I couldn't have said that last one better. You nailed it.
Okay, great. So good to know. I was like, did you have anything you wanted to add? What makes Blueprint different from any other coaching program out there is that we don't coach athletes in isolation. We coach the entire ecosystem. So families, coaches, support systems around them, athletes, again, depending on what level, where they're at in their career, all of that varies, but we are here to ensure that they become aligned, equipped, and disciplined with the skills to become exceptional human beings.
We got to take a minute, Erin, to acknowledge the fact that that's your son, number 87, that's about to catch that TD. Anyway, moving on to that's a proud mom. Yeah, it goes back to a system, and with a system, there's accountability behind it. So at each and every level, I think we're kind of beating the drum here, and you guys are kind of getting a little bit of understanding of what Blueprint to Blue Chip is all about.
So when you work with us, we don't leave you with hype. We want to leave you with framework. We want you to have structure for inside your home, clarity for you as an individual, for you as an athlete, and ultimately for you to become a leader both in the locker room and outside of that in all areas of your life. So it's not just about developing your talent, it's about raising your system and your discipline so that you can ultimately achieve why you were brought here. What is your purpose? What are you here to give to other people? And we want to give you the tools and systems and structure in order to do that.
Awesome. Yeah. Generally, what I like to say to a lot of athletes I've mentored in the past, I'm going to get you on the way up or on the way down. And what that means, if you're too busy for me now because you got everything under control and you know it all, that's fine. But when things come crashing down, when your season is over, when your career is over, I'll be right there to help you pick up the pieces and hopefully it never comes to that point. But what we really want to do is yes, we want to support the student athlete to get to their goals, whether it's a professional, whether it's a scholarship, whether it's NIL money, or whether it's to get that pro contract or that spot on the Olympic team. But we also we're playing the long game here with the student athletes. We all know that you've got about 4 or 5 years tops, and that's college and the pro level. But what are you going to do after that? You've got 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years. What are you going to do for the next 40, 50, or 60 years? And that's where Blueprint to Blue Chip gives you the structure.
Awesome. So the work that we do, we take incredibly seriously. This is very intentional. It's very deep. And ultimately, a term we like to say is white glove. This isn't about some massive, we're going to try to give you something in a group setting and good luck. We want high touch, high accountability to make a lasting transformation in your life, in your family's life. And so every week we take 5 families to come in, or coaches to come in and experience Blueprint to Blue Chip for 5 days. And all we ask is that you make a donation to a charity of our choice, which is a nonprofit that Tom has started called Silence the Noise, in honor of his sister. And I'll let him share a little bit about that with you guys. But we want you to come in. We want you to experience what we have to offer for 5 days. It's called Raising Exceptional for the parents and athletes. We also have a 5-day reset to help coaches really realign their culture and how they want to lead, how they want to coach, what's the tone they want to set as a leader within their organization. And so you have 2 distinct opportunities to work with us. We're going to drop the link in the chat where you can go on and apply for one of those 5 spots. We would love to work with you and have you really experience what we do.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, who's that at the plate?
That would be my beautiful daughter, Peyton.
That's right. We're just making it a family affair.
We are, because I can use their name, image, and likeness because they're mine.
That's right. The 5-day reset is just simply, it's an hour-long reset. And basically what we do is we give you all of the tools for the whole 90-day program as well as for the 12-year program. The 12-month program. So what we do is we just kind of walk you through everything. We just give you a taste of everything. And we want you to go with God. And just, if this is something you could do on your own, fantastic. Then our mission is done there, that we've given you the tools and the structure. All we ask is so that you have a little skin in the game. A little backstory is my older sister, who passed away in 2016, she was manic depressive schizophrenic. So for 40 years, it was complete chaos in our home. We never knew which Tanya was going to show up. So my brothers and I, there was 4 of us. My brothers and I were all collegiate athletes, and we never took for granted that we had the opportunity to keep a clear mind, clear head, and play sports. Not everyone could do that. Now, unfortunately, what we've learned is that some people slip into a strong depression. I'm sure some of you are nodding your heads because maybe that was you or somebody that you knew. So silencethenoise.org is my nonprofit that I started in Tanya's name. All proceeds go to NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. So if this sounds like something that you could use, or even if somebody you know, please pass along the link. We're excited to work with people. It's not all about the money. It's about making a change and introducing people to the process and the system.
Absolutely. And ultimately, we want to forge a new world, a new generation where we are raising leaders, and those that lead with character, integrity, and discipline, and leave a legacy better for this world. And that's really the calling behind this mission. So we don't just build athletes, we build exceptional leaders. So if you would like to book a call with us, work with us, if you're a professional athlete, we have several people that we work with. We'll drop the link to book a call with us in this chat, and we would love to connect. We'd love to learn how to support your mission, your vision, and how we can come together.
Awesome. Well, we carved out an hour and knocked it out in 33 minutes. We're not going to stick around for a 2-minute warning. We want to respect your time. If you're tight on time, we totally understand. You're going to get back to the other things in your life. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. We will stick around here for about another 5 minutes. You could always drop a question into us on LinkedIn. I'm Thomas Rowe, ROE, and we have Erin there that you could connect with her on LinkedIn. You could always reach out to us that way. But what do you think, Erin? Give people about 5 minutes.
If you have questions, drop them in the comments. We would love to answer them, take questions. No questions so far. We don't want to waste anybody's time. We're not going to hang out here if nobody's doing that. So if you know where to find us on all social media platforms, reach out. We'd love to connect, and we're here to change the next generation.
Awesome. Excellent, you guys.